Today on The Float, we're diving deep into why confusion isn't your enemy, it's your compass. So jump on into the current and let's float. I want you to think about the last time you felt completely confident about something happening in the world, and then discovered you were wrong. Or at least, that the situation was far more complicated than you initially understood. Maybe it was a news story that turned out differently than reported. Maybe it was a conflict between friends where you learned there were sides to the story you never heard. Maybe it was a work situation where the obvious solution wasn't so obvious after all. Maybe it was something you were certain you saw with your own eyes that proved otherwise after closer inspection. That feeling you had, that moment of, wait, I thought I understood this. That's not a personal failure. That's not evidence that you're not smart enough or informed enough or paying attention enough. That's evidence that you're human, living in a time when being confused is actually the most rational response to our information environment. I'm Jon Sanchez, and this is The Float, where we take time to breathe, reflect, and find our center in the swirling currents of modern life. Let me share a personal confession with you. For someone who's a self-proclaimed expert on information and technology, I get confused a fair bit. In fact, most of us in technology and management spend a good bit of our lives confused. Confused about technical problems, employee challenges, budgetary concerns, how our projects may have gone off the rails. The truth is, confusion is part of the everyday experience for most of us. We've all very recently witnessed how breaking news unfolds in our current information environment. As events emerge, information spreads rapidly, much of it unconfirmed, through social media, news outlets, and personal networks. Coverage comes at us from all angles, reaching everyone who's connected: family, friends, kids, bosses. Within minutes, while details are still shifting and unclear, we see a familiar pattern emerge. Immediate attempts to assign meaning and blame, often based on incomplete information. I noticed something during recent news cycles: the speed at which fully formed explanations emerged. People across the political spectrum immediately shared what they believed was evidence supporting their existing worldviews. Some pointing to external influences, others to internal conflicts, others to systemic issues. Some even calling for action. Each group had their own interpretation, often viewing the same incomplete information through entirely different lenses. The troubling reality? In those crucial first hours, verified facts were scarce. Official reports, investigations, and confirmed details often don't emerge for days or even weeks. That doesn't stop the transfer of information. The conversion of that information into strong emotions and reactions directed at whoever each person believes is responsible. I encountered no fewer than 6 different well-presented explanations within the first day. Each presented with confidence, though none based on verified facts because none had been officially confirmed yet. This wasn't because people were being deliberately misleading. It was because information was moving faster than anyone could properly verify it. The speed of our news cycle leaves little time for anything other than immediate reactions before the next wave of updates arrives. We found ourselves swimming in an ocean of incomplete, contradictory, and rapidly evolving information. I watched as people formed strong convictions based on what they were seeing, not realizing they were often reading and responding to different versions of the same unfolding story. People experience genuine concern, frustration, and confusion, all natural human responses that deserve time and space to process thoughtfully. But our current information environment doesn't allow for that kind of measured reflection. That's when something clicked for me about this week's float topic. The confusion we're experiencing isn't a flaw in our thinking. It's a natural response to the current system. This confusion is healthy in that it represents our minds trying to make sense of incomplete information. But it can also be dangerous if we feed it whatever comes our way without pause or verification. The uncertainty you feel isn't personal inadequacy, it's environmental overwhelm. Somewhere along the way, our culture made it difficult to simply say, "I don't know," and just sit comfortably with that uncertainty until we have reliable information to fill the gap. In today's information economy, instantaneous information wins over quality information, and you are expected to filter out the noise. Luckily, this will be covered in a later segment on information hygiene and information diet, because just as we're careful about what we put in our bodies, we must be equally mindful of what we put in our minds. But here's what I've discovered. There's actually something profound about admitting I don't know. It's honest, it's accurate, and it's often the beginning of genuine wisdom. But our culture doesn't reward I don't know, does it? We live in a world that expects you to have opinions about everything. Global politics, local policies, celebrity scandals, economic trends, social movements, scientific discoveries. There's this underlying assumption that if you're not informed about something, you're not engaged, not responsible, not enough. I see this pressure everywhere, in family gatherings where silence about a topic is interpreted as apathy, in workplaces where "I need to research that more" feels like admitting incompetence, on social media where not having a take on the latest controversy somehow makes you complicit. The expectation isn't just to know, it's to know immediately, to have formed opinions in real time, to be ready with analysis before all the facts are even available. But here's what I learned during one of the most uncertain periods of my life. About 10 years ago, I started experiencing an excruciating pain in my face. Random, electric shock-like episodes that would drop me to my knees. Literally. I went from dentist to doctor, specialist to specialist for nearly 18 months. Each had theories, each ran tests. None had answers. So I'd pretended it was just a bad tooth or some sinus issue or a migraine maybe. Life stops for no man though, and during this time I was running a global team, managing employees, making decisions that affected people's livelihoods. The demands were high, and this pain was invisible. No one could see it, so I felt the pressure to deliver as usual, to act normal, what they call masking. The pressure to keep performing at the same level and supporting my team and career. Meanwhile, internally, I was terrified. Was this something serious? Was I dying? Would it get worse? The not knowing was almost as debilitating as the physical pain itself. And then finally, a random stop at an urgent care clinic led to a diagnosis, trigeminal neuralgia. I finally had an answer, but even then, the uncertainty didn't end. There was no cure, only treatments with significant risks. I had a name, but then I also still had the pain, still had my responsibilities, and still had to figure out how to move forward from there. Learn to float on. That's something you'll hear a lot out of me. That experience taught me something profound about living with uncertainty. I learned that I don't know doesn't mean I'm helpless. It means I'm gathering information. It means I'm learning to adapt. It means I'm finding ways to function even when I can't control everything. I discovered that admitting uncertainty, whether about a medical condition, a work situation, or a global crisis, isn't weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. Because once you stop pretending to know things you don't actually know, you can start learning what you actually need to know. There's something liberating about embracing uncertainty. When you stop pretending to know things you don't actually know, you create space for genuine learning. In Eastern philosophy, there's a concept called beginner's mind, approaching situations with openness and lack of preconceptions. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said,
"In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few."
So there it is. When you're confused, when you're uncertain, when you honestly don't know, You're in the beginner's mind. You're open to new information in a way that certainty doesn't allow. Think about the conversations you've had recently. The most productive ones probably weren't when you were defending a position you were absolutely certain about going in. They were probably when you were genuinely curious, when you asked questions, when you said things like, "Help me understand," or "I hadn't thought of it that way." A fresh pair of eyes isn't bringing in another resource. It's bringing in a different mindset. Confusion is often the first step toward understanding. It's your brain recognizing that the situation is more complex than your current models can handle. That's not failure. That's intelligence. When you stop fighting confusion and start working with it, you develop what researchers call cognitive flexibility. You become better at updating your beliefs when you encounter new information. You become more comfortable with nuance, with complexity, with the fact that most real-world situations don't have simple answers. This doesn't mean becoming wishy-washy or never taking stands. It means holding your opinions lightly enough that you can change them without losing your identity. It means distinguishing between what you know and what you think you know. Now, I don't want to leave you swimming in uncertainty without a compass. Understanding why confusion is normal is just the first step. On Wednesday, we're going to dive deeper into something that will change how you think about information forever. I'm going to share a distinction that took me years to understand as it evolved. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. We're not having a truth problem. We're having a trust problem. Think about that for a moment. Truth and trust. They seem connected, but they're actually separable, and they can be manipulated independently. When someone says, "I don't believe that news story," are they questioning the facts, or are they questioning the source? When you find yourself agreeing with information that confirms what you already believe, is it because it's more accurate, or because it comes from sources you trust? Wednesday, we're going to unpack how our information ecosystem has evolved from broadcast to networked, how algorithms create personalized realities, and why two intelligent people can look at the same event and reach completely different conclusions. But for now, I want you to practice something simple. I want you to practice what I'll call sitting with not knowing. When you encounter a breaking news story, a social media post, or a conversation about something complex or triggering, instead of immediately responding or sharing, try saying out loud or in your head, "I don't know enough about this yet." Notice what that feels like. Notice if there's discomfort. Notice if there's pressure to have an immediate take. When someone asks for your opinion on something you haven't researched, try responding with curiosity instead of certainty. "What do you think?" Or, "What information are you seeing?" Or, probably the most uncomfortable of all, "Help me understand your perspective." The goal isn't to become paralyzed by uncertainty. The goal is to become comfortable with the difference between what you know and what you think you know, and engage with it. Ironically, we can't ignore our own ignorance. Remember, confusion isn't failure, it's honesty. And honesty is the foundation of wisdom. I know, it's a lot. Take another deep breath. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to process every piece of information. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. You just have to be human, doing your best in a world that's moving faster than any of us can completely comprehend. And that's not just okay, that's enough. Wednesday, we'll explore why the system makes confusion feel like personal failure and how understanding that changes everything. Until then, float gently, my friends. I'm Jon Sanchez, and I'll see you in the current. The Float is part of the Current podcast series. For guided exercises and additional resources for sitting with uncertainty, visit jellyfishphilosophy.com or reach out on our socials. Take care of yourself, and remember, you don't have to know everything to be wise. If you made it this far, thank you. Your support means the world, and I hope you're getting what you need here. I have a special treat for you. At the end of every episode, I'll share some custom music made just for this show and for you. A little for everyone's tastes. Enjoy.
Look at the sky. Is it blue or is it gray? Does it stretch or does it fade? Do you feel it bend your way? The mirror speaks, but it's cracked and torn, shows the world